Hi, this is Son of the Hunter again, and bringing you another Shitty Couch vlog, and this time a follow-up to the previous Shitty Couch vlog where I talked about my favorite cover artwork and box art for video games. And, of course, after I did that, I immediately started to think about, should I make a bottom 10 box art video? And I have not read any comments yet as of the making of this video, so I don't know if people liked the first video yet, but I decided, what the hell, I'm gonna do it anyway because that's the logical way to go. Now, one of the things with this list is that I tried to avoid a lot of the obvious topics because lots of people have already made videos about bad video game box art. So I'm steering away from a lot of the obvious picks that people would put on their lists. And that means I will not be discussing the infamous cover art for the American box of the first Mega Man game. And the thing you will notice with this video is that I'm not necessarily always going to pick box art that just has awkward art in it, although there's going to be a couple of those. Just like with the last video, I hope that I'll get an interesting broad range of covers, and also this is why I'm not going to be featuring the Master System covers very heavily. And the same rule as the first list, that no covers that are just the logo of the game. Okay, now that we're all clear, let's get on with the list. And on the number 10 spot, I have to say that for all the shit that the Master System covers usually take from fans for being rather poorly made renditions, especially compared to what the Japanese boxes for the system were like, I think there is another 8-bit system where people completely neglect the fact that in their day, these were actually pretty lazy, terrible covers in their own right. I mean, yes, the Master System covers are bad, but they are at least an artistic rendition of what goes on in the game. And the number 10 spot goes broadly to the early Nintendo Entertainment System covers from North America, which in most cases are just the in-game sprite art from the game. And I know I've already alienated a good segment of you by including these anyway, but let me just point this out to you that what you have basically done is the equivalent of pointing a camera at your TV and taking a picture. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but that's the kind of stuff you expect for the back of the box, not the front. I mean, I honestly don't really like the American cover for Super Mario Brothers, and all the other examples from the very early days of the NES just look really lazy, especially when you compare them to the European cover that usually did have actual artwork on them. But I know I'm being unfair here, considering that the European versions came out much later. And the irony here is that although I'm criticizing these covers for being particularly lazy, the thing is, sprite art in this day and age is very much in the vogue, so these covers have actually managed to beat the test of time to actually now being kinda hip and cool. Which is the only reason they're number 10 in my book, but really, never really cared for the early NES box artwork. At number 9, just barely avoiding the no logos rule on this list, is the cover for Superman for the Nintendo 64. Now, of course, yes, it's an infamous game, but a lot of people may be a little surprised by this entry, considering that the artwork in itself isn't bad. And yes, that's pretty much the only reason I'm only having it as number 9. However, that doesn't change the fact that although this art in itself isn't bad, the thing you have to remember is that this is not original art for this point in game. This is just literally a frame of animation from the cartoon, which the video game is based on. So yes, the reason this cover is on here is because it's just a lazy cover. They couldn't be bothered to create an original piece of art for the game, and yes, I get it, it's a licensed game, but there's plenty of licensed games that have original artwork on them. What the fuck is Superman's excuse? Number 8, Night Trap. And if you're asking which version, both. Yes, even the drawn art version just kind of looks a little awkward, and if you've seen the full version of it, you realize that the girl on it is wearing nothing but a bra. And then there's a half-clad woman on the live-action version, which actually features images from the games. As you know, that's kind of a no-no for me. I mean, really, all these covers are... the word that comes to mind is desperate. They're desperate to make you want to buy this game because it's got boobs in it. At number 7, it's the cover for Fatal Fury for the Neo Geo. Now, if it's a fighting game, that came out before 1995 on any home system, you gotta expect the covers to include a little bit of awkwardness, stemming from the fact that Western distributors for these games just weren't comfortable with the art style that was being used. But even keeping that in mind, this is a fucking terrible excuse for a cover. You're literally showing the lead character being punched off a building by a nameless nobody. I'm pretty sure this guy isn't a character from the game. And on top of that, it just looks awkward. This is a terrible box. Moving on. At number 6, it's the Super Nintendo cover for Final Fight. Now, okay, I'll give this cover some slack because that obviously is Mayor Hager from the game. Don't know why you chose him over, you know, the two most popular characters. And I suppose that's the level 3 boss. But unfortunately, this cover commits a very classic graphic design flaw, which is to focus on all the wrong parts of the individual. Now, intense close-ups of people's faces can work, but if you pick just the wrong angle, and if you pick just the wrong people to focus on, well, let's just face it, it looks uncomfortable. And the more I look at this cover, the more I start reading kind of weird undertones into it. I think literally the only way they could make this even more uncomfortable if the cover was just a close-up of Hager's mandible. If you look at all the other different covers for Final Fight, they focus more on the other characters and don't go for this awkward staring contest thing that they got going on over here. Now, I know most of you will be surprised by the entry that made the number 5 spot. So let me just show it to you and then give you the explanation. The number 5 spot goes to Nintendo World Cup for the NES. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, that's a load of bullshit. I mean, it's just a cover for some soccer game. And the art isn't that awkward. Yes, the artwork both is and isn't the problem. It's not bad art, but that's not the reason I'm including it. The reason Nintendo World Cup makes the number 5 spot is misrepresentation. Now let's take a look at the Japanese box. Wait a minute, these characters look quite different, and I think they look kind of familiar. Yes, Nintendo World Cup was actually made by Technos, who are of course known for the video game River City Ransom, which is part of the Kunio-kun series of games, which Nintendo World Cup is a part of. Yes, it's a soccer game with River City Ransom characters. In fact, one of my favorite soccer games because it's such an unusual soccer title from this period. But if you knew nothing about this game and you just looked at the cover, you'll probably be misled to believe that this is just some boring soccer game. And it's not. I think this cover is absolutely awful because it doesn't tell you what the game is like. It gets nowhere near to giving you an accurate depiction of what Nintendo World Cup is like. But like I said, the art's not terrible or anything, which is the reason it only made the number 5 spot. Okay, number 4, roll call for all the terrible Master System artwork, because of course, one of them had to make it up here. Now, a lot of them are just lazy, but there's one in particular that just never fails to bring a smile to my face every time I see it, and that's the cover for Pro Wrestling for the Master System. I mean, just look at this. Just take it in how incredible this cover is. Now, there's 3 popular interpretations of what's actually even going on here. Now, either this is one wrestler having another wrestler in a headlock, and for some reason the artist forgot to draw the other wrestler's head and the other wrestler's body. The second interpretation is that it's a headless body squeezing a bodiless head. Or, the third one, and quite possibly my favorite interpretation, is that this is a guy giving himself a headlock. I love this interpretation because I just love the idea that somehow with this cover's cartoony physics, this person was somehow able to twist his head around his back under his arm. Now before we get to number 3, I do have to say that I do feel really bad for not including the Castlevania covers on my previous list. In fact, I probably feel even more guilty for not including the Metal Gear cover, which is pretty much just Michael Biehn from the Terminator. And here's the thing, the Castlevania artwork from Konami is awesome, and apart from forgetting to include them, I think I also kind of avoided them just so we wouldn't have too many NES covers on the list. Now, of the 3 covers, I do have to say the Castlevania 3 one has never been my personal favorite. I just don't kind of like the general vibe of it, but even this cover is fucking amazing. If you look at the Japanese original, dear God, this looks awkward. I mean, these don't even look like the characters, these look like bad cosplayers. Trevor forgot to put his wig on straight, apparently. And Alucard just looks like a stereotypical Dracula, which isn't completely uncommon because his dad kind of gets the same treatment in these early Castlevania games, but come on! I mean, I get they're kind of going for the cool movie poster look, but this just looks bad. The Super Castlevania 4 cover isn't much better, but it wasn't awkward enough for me to include on the list itself. Okay, number 2. Oh, Jesus Christ. What the fuck is this? Now, okay, Jaleco. It's not bad enough that you acquired a license to a criminally underrated game series from Epic Mega Games. It's not bad enough that you made a game that essentially has nothing to do with one of the most underrated game series from Epic Mega Games. But then, just to hammer the point home, you created this atrocity, this terrible, terrible piece of quote-unquote art. I mean, what the fuck were you trying to do? God, this just makes me incredibly pissed off. I'm sorry I got so worked up. We'll now do number 1. And number 1! Now, before I show you the cover, I think you need to sit down and maybe step back from your computer screen a little bit. Now let's go back to the Final Fight cover for a little while. Like I said, the only way I feel this cover could be even more unsettling and disturbing is if it was a close-up of Mayor Haggard's man-tit. Well, to be honest, you don't even have to go that far. All you have to do is focus on all the wrong parts of human anatomy, and all of a sudden, the whole image gets kind of disturbing. An extreme close-up kinda depends entirely on what's being shown to you, and this is why I think quite possibly the worst cover I've ever seen from a video game is the GameCube cover for Resident Evil Code Veronica X. Yeah. Claire, do you mind, like, you know, backing off a little bit? You're kind of making me a little...
I will eat your heart.
Well, that was the list. I hope you're traumatized. Feel free to share some of your least favorite box art in the comments down below. And let me know if you feel like I should do more of these top 10s talking about box art. I'm wondering if I should do the funny bad box art list first, or I'm also thinking of doing my favorite kind of weird and surreal box art. Let me know that in the comments as well. This is Hunter the Hunter Mackinnon, and
I will eat your heart.
And the irony here is that although I'm criticizing these covers for being particularly lazy, the thing of course is, sprite art in this day and age is very much in the vogue.